Welcome to Roadmap to 1 Million. My name is Stacey Zeal, and if you're looking to make more money, gain your time back, and rapidly grow your visibility so that you can impact way more people with your brilliance, you're in the right place. This podcast is your one-stop shop for turning your online business dreams into a reality. My main goal is to give women entrepreneurs just like you the marketing strategies, guidance, and expert insights you need to hit that $1 million milestone and beyond. Whether you're a coach, a consultant, or an online brand that wants to make a big impact, Roadmap to 1 Million gives you the actionable strategies and inspiration you need so that you can implement right away, no fluff, no fuss. So CEO, are you ready to buckle up and accelerate your growth? Be sure to follow the show and let's dive in. Get ready to uncover your Roadmap to 1 Million. All right, y'all. Welcome back to another episode of Roadmap to 1 Million. I am Stacey Zeal. I am your host. And today we have a very special episode because I have one of my favorite clients that I've worked with that's going to be on the podcast today that's going to talk about our experience in working together. And so if you are someone out there that's considering hiring someone to help you with your marketing, definitely make sure you listen to this episode because she's going to give you some information, some insights about, what it was like to work together, some things that, she was able to free up her time with working with us. So I am incredibly excited. So welcome to the show, Ellie. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you, Stacey. Happy New Year. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, Happy New Year. I'm so glad you are here. So before we get started and jump into the interview, tell us a little bit about African Media Agency. What do y'all do? Who do y'all help? And what is your mission of your brand? Because I just love it.
Yeah. So it's shocking, but the agency is 10 years old this year.
Wow.
I started it from my kitchen table when I was based in Dubai. And the whole aim at the beginning was to create a bridge between companies wanting to communicate with journalists on the continents. So we started off by building one of the first solutions to distribute press releases across the continent. And slowly, we grew into being a 360 agency where we provide PR, reputation management, media relations, but also digital marketing to our clients. And we are operating on the continent in Africa. Our clients are mostly international clients. We've got presence in Côte d'Ivoire, which is in West Africa, but also in Nigeria, Ghana, Uganda, Kenya, South Africa. We're a small and mighty team, and we're busy and growing. It's a good place to be.
Yes, definitely a great place to be, and definitely congratulations on 10 years. That is awesome. I love that. And so when we start to think about, taking it back to before we worked together, because we worked together for a while, you were in a place where you were thinking we wanted to hire marketing help, so you have a team, let me give everybody a little context. So you have a team and you have an awesome team of people who are executing client work, who are executing the marketing for the agency. And they are overall just a hungry, awesome team that loves to learn and wants to, and does really great things. But when we started to working together, talk to me a little bit about what were some of the challenges or roadblocks that you were coming up with that had you considering that you needed to hire someone to come in and help your marketing team to be more successful at what they were already doing.
Right. So I don't have a marketing background. I have an understanding and obviously an interest in marketing, but I don't have that background. And my team, as you said, great team, eager to learn, but everybody juggling between client work and trying to sort of promote the work that we're doing without having a holistic view of what needs to be done and without having processes. And I think that was one of my biggest pain points. It was, okay, we're 9 years in the business and things were not moving as quickly as I expected it to be in terms of bringing in new business or retaining clients because we're never consistent around our marketing activities. So when I came to you, it was, it's fair to say that it was a huge mess because we had some sort of marketing activities scattered around, but nothing was in place. No process were in place. Our tools were all over the place. I think the only thing that we were probably doing well on or at was the SEO, but even that needed a bit more, a different, like an eagle view that you were able to give to us. So this was sort of when I reached out to you, I was in a phase where I realized if I really want to grow, I need to invest in my marketing. And I think the support and the solution that you provided for us was excellent. It's like I had this team that needed to learn from someone who's done that for years, and this is exactly what you provided to us. So I'm pretty grateful.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was I really enjoyed working with your team because, and some of the CEOs I think can relate to what you're saying in that you have a team of people who are great, right? They're getting stuff done, they're putting work out, they're delivering client work, but they're busy, right? Like they're just, so focused on a lot of different projects. And when you don't have the right processes in place when it comes to your marketing, it's easy for marketing to get lost in the sauce, or it's easy for marketing to can kind of get pushed to the side because we're so focused on delivering for our clients and keeping our clients happy. But we have to remember that marketing, doesn't just happen, right? There's a series of processes and strategies and systems that you have to put in place in order to make sure that it's happening consistently. And so when
I
you're
think also, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Sorry. I think also that being an agency, I've also I didn't realize until last year how much we also needed marketing. And I think to me, it was a little bit around, well, we're not a B2C company. We don't really have a consumer product to sell. And to me, marketing activities are very much not for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think it was very refreshing to find someone who first spoke our language, where I didn't need to explain what, distribution of a press release was, or the way or what agency life was. And also what you did really well for us was applying some of the B2C principles to a B2B business like ours.
Mm-hmm.
And to a business who's also, in the creative space and in the consultancy space, where there is a way of doing things with certain marketing principles that can be applied to everybody, but that you strategize within your own industry. And I think for me, this was key, to realize that, okay, we can do that, and we can do that smartly with someone who understands our pain points and who understands the industry we deal with, and who can, roll out a strategy that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I'm so glad that you pointed that out because, it really is important, especially for B2B brands, to understand that even though the tactics are a little different between when you're marketing to another business versus marketing to an individual consumer, there is a lot of overlap that has to happen, right? Like creating content. So we were using, social media and like using LinkedIn, using Instagram, using Facebook. And one of the things we had to really, make sure we were doing was creating effective content on those actual channels, like that were actually moving people closer to the sale. And by that, I mean, making sure we had our call to actions in there, making sure we were leading people to the next step instead of just, because a lot of what we were doing before was taking some of the press articles that we did and just posting them on Instagram or posting them on LinkedIn. And it's like, that's great. But then we also have to make sure that we tell people what to do with this information, right? Like, yes, read this article and go check it out and see what we can do. But then also book a call with us because we could do we can do something similar for your business. And so when I come into my different brands, really kind of what I'm looking for is, are we focused on the right strategies? Like, do we have the right channels? Are we using the right marketing channels? Do we have the right systems in place to make sure that things actually go from ideation all the way to actually execution, and then even reporting on that and learning from that to make sure that we can apply those things to other channels. And making sure that that the team is focused on the right things so everybody knows what their role is. So like when we do, for example, one of the things on projects that we worked on was getting a monthly newsletter out. And so we had to make sure that we knew like what was Ellie's part of the newsletter, and then what was the other, after Ellie finishes her part, who picks up next, and then what happens after the content is actually compiled, right? Especially because we were wanting to do things in different languages also, because of your whole team, they speak different languages. And so we had to make sure that we were like, okay, like once the English was done, now we need to translate it to French. And so all of that stuff is comes from processes. And so if you are a CEO up there and you're feeling like you are wanting to execute certain marketing tasks, but it's inconsistent, the first place I'm looking is what systems do you have in place to facilitate consistency? Because consistency doesn't just happen, right? And I tell people all the time, like, I am not a consistent person by nature. Like, if I could just float around and just like, go through life and just kind of having things just happen, absolutely. But that's just not how this works. We have to make sure that we put processes in place to make sure that things are consistent. Leading your marketing as the CEO can be time-consuming and draining, which leads to inconsistent marketing and slow growth. If you're looking to supercharge your sales, gain your precious CEO time back, and increase your impact, our Fractional Chief Marketing Officer service at Stacy Zeal & Co. is your secret weapon. Picture this. No more missed deadlines, no more unfinished campaigns, no more jumping from tactic to tactic. You can absolutely achieve all of that without pouring more of your time into marketing, even if you have a small and inexperienced team. Want to know how? Head over to stacyzeal.co/CMO right now to watch our free video. We'll show you the exact strategies and tactics that have helped countless online service providers, coaches, and consultants just like you skyrocket their sales with their existing team. Don't miss out on this opportunity to transform your business. Visit stacyzeal.co/CMO today to watch the video and get ready to make more money, gain your time back, and increase your impact. All right, let's jump back into the episode. And so one of the things that I remember when we first started working together, which was great, and I wanted to call out for everybody, is that we had started working together when you had hired someone to build out your systems. And so you had someone who was coming in and she was building out, like sales systems and, getting a project management system and all that kind of stuff put into place. And I think it was great timing. And I don't even know if you timed this, intentionally, but I thought it was great timing because then I was able to come in and say, okay, these are the systems we need for marketing. Right? Like, yes, sales needs their own systems. Yes, internally, we need systems for client delivery, but we also need systems for marketing for our business. And so talk to me a little bit about how it was to be able to work with me as well as a systems person, or to have me kind of, helping your external vendors to be able to better deliver what they were building for the business.
So it's exactly what happened. It was me realizing at the end of 2022 that if I wanted to get to the next step, I needed to address marketing and my processes. And I think simply because what happened is we grew fairly fast, we grew remotely, we grew servicing our clients and trying to get new business in and being busy. And our foundations and our processes were super shaky. And eventually, this could really end. I really believe that can be the end of a business if this is not addressed quickly enough. So bringing on board Alicia from zero to entrepreneur, looking at all of our tech stack, migrating our systems. It was honestly same time last year as losing my mind because we had migrated from Microsoft to the Google Suite. We were getting on board on ClickUp. It took literally, we almost done. Like, we're still working on it. It's been a year, but it was so integral in, it was surgical, but it was ensuring that we put the tracks like properly to make sure that we keep going at that speed that we want to go to without hitting a wall. Mm-hmm. And so having you and Alicia work together was brilliant, as you said, because you came in telling us, okay, where are your stuff, guys? And I remember it was such a mess all over the place. Literally no project management. We're just using our Drive and emails and chats on the side. Nobody knew where things were. Nobody knew where our photos were. And then having you say, okay, this is what we need to build out. These are the different spaces that we need to have. This is what the newsletter needs to, comprises. This is the automation that we need. Having a weekly call with a specific agenda with tasks. All of this is absolute. I really consider it being an asset. It's, it's part of our, definitely it increased our value to have all of these systems in place and all of the different SOPs and documents that you helped us create. It just made me breathe so much that, first of all, if one of my marketing team members leave tomorrow and a new one joins, it's all very clear and documented. I know where things are. I know what to look at. I know what my team is working on. And it's just a huge, huge peace of mind to have that huge chunk handled and really to understand. And as you were saying, like having different actions, because I think in the past, and I believe that a lot of us entrepreneurs have millions of ideas. So we keep on ideating. We're like, okay, let's do this, let's do that, let's do that. But you helping us say, okay, let's stop and think. Why do you want to do that? Is it really are you really going to bring a qualified lead by doing this? Maybe let's try and let's tweak and then let's stop doing it and let's adapt something else. And I think that just gives structure in a very sort of a blurry, busy mind where you think that you have to do everything because you've seen it somewhere. So yeah, looking back, it was a lot. It was definitely a lot. But it's so essential. I honestly don't think we would be where we are this year if we hadn't been through that process.
Yeah.
It's definitely paying off. Like it's like there's a yes, there's a pre and an after, and you really see clearly the difference between how things used to be and how things are now. And I think it also helps us with what we advise our clients to do, since we are consulting, on the PR marketing, it's essentially falling under the same umbrella. And I think learning what we've learned really helps us get better expertise.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I wanted to call out a couple of things that you said. One, we grew really quickly. And so then we started to realize that, like, we grew a lot. And so we're doing a lot of the client delivery, but some of the other foundational things we missed because we were just busy and we had to keep up with our client demand. And, things kind of just, grow so fast that sometimes they start to like rip at the seams. Like, as you get to that point where you're like, hey, like we're growing, but our team is stressed out and busy and things are starting to get missed because we have so much more work now. And so if you're listening out there and that sounds familiar to you, you definitely want to start to think about who you can bring into your team to help you to create some foundational kinds of pieces. Because, from my experience in working with large brands and, a lot of people listen to the podcast, they know I've worked at Zappos. And so I really got to see how a marketing engine operated and everything was systematized. There was structure to everything. There wasn't a whole lot of just winging it. If I needed to get something from the creative team, there was a process. I didn't just go up to someone and say, hey, I need you to create something for social media, or I need you to create this GIF, or I need you to, to create a video for me. There was a process that we had to go through. So that way that person actually, had all the information that they needed to be able to do their job. So it's not a whole lot of back and forth. And so creating some of those things within ClickUp and the systems that we were using and making sure that we know, like, what picks up, where does one person's task end and where does another thing pick up? Those are kinds of things that carry you on for years, right? Because, and I sometimes think about, going through the experience and I'm like, it might have sucked a little bit for a while. Like it might have been a lot. It might have been a lot of like, oh my gosh, this is so basic. This is foundational things, like having to like say the same things over again, like put it in ClickUp, put it in ClickUp, put it in ClickUp. But as you do that, your team starts to realize that there is a process in place and they start to adapt the process. And so as you grow, and like you mentioned, like as maybe someone leaves, maybe we have a new team member come on, right? Maybe someone is out for maternity leave or, a honeymoon or something like that, right? Things can still get done. Like the newsletter can still go out, like projects can still get completed. Social media stuff can still get posted, even though someone may be out. And so even though going through the process, it kind of sucks a little bit to really have to go back to these foundational things, it really does pay off in the long run, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%. But yes, it's painful.
Yeah, it is a little
A
painful. It
lot.
is a little painful, but
It
it
is
definitely is
painful.
perfect.
It's like everything. It's like everything. I think if we just commit to building a business that looks like what a business should look like,
Yeah.
these are steps that need to be taken. It's like disciplining ourselves and just doing it. And as you said, documenting and like having a proper structure behind everything, to just breathe and do the fun work, really.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, we always want to do the fun stuff for sure. And I'm like, yeah, systems aren't really fun. At least not to me. Systems are not fun. I'm sure Alicia and some other of our systems folks that we love over here at the show, they love systems and it lights them up. But for me, creating systems isn't something that lights me up, but it's more so like I have to be able to have a system in order for my brain to be like, okay, this is what we have to do. And so it's just like, it really is like important to really kind of document those things. So let's talk about a little bit about you actually moved to a completely different country in the middle of us
I
working together.
did.
You were based in New York and now you've moved to Abidjan where your team is based. And so would love to talk a little bit about how impactful it is to have, or how you were feeling in that transition process, knowing that marketing still need to happen even though you were moving, teams still had, like, meetings still had to happen. So tell me a little bit about how that move was for you, when it comes to, while that time that we were working together, and then the team still staying on top of what we had to stay on top of.
Yeah, it was, I think I'm still processing the last year
Mm-hmm.
because the move is something that we have been talking about as a family for the past 2 to 3 years. Um, it was a big move. It was a very personal move. It's always been, I started my company based in Dubai, which was ideal in terms of time zone. In the region, we sort of always love that Dubai is the capital of Africa because you have so many flights to all the different countries of the continent. And, it's friendly time zone. I used to have like long mornings and everything was great until my husband got transferred to New York. And that was literally a year after I started the business. So I've always thought, this is not going to work. I moved to New York thinking I'll try and see what happens, but it's really unlikely that this is going to work. I was 8 hours behind Kenya. It's just, I just thought I will try, but really, I think I'll just look for a job once I'm in the US. And I just kept on being jet lagged. I just kept on waking up early in the morning, answering my emails, getting things to work. And I lived this way for 8 years, which is totally crazy. And that goes to, it's amazing what we can do. I think we can do really, really hard things when you want to, because I think ultimately deep down, I wasn't ready to let that go. I just wanted to work that business. So the move, and I think probably this year, when people are like, what are your resolution of the year and what's your goal? I tell them, you know what, my goal is to do a lot less this year and to be very kind with myself.
I love
Because
that.
last year, and I knew I went in thinking this is my big year. Everything needs to change. It's like I'm gonna, I ran 2 marathons while changing my systems, getting marketing in place, while organizing an international move, selling our houses, getting our kids adjusted. It was just a huge mess. And I think on the personal front, I was also so ready to, since this is like a safe space, I can say this, like being a woman of color in the US was so difficult for me. And I'm, obviously by my accent, I was born in France and it wasn't easy in France, but I think being in the US really made me realize how difficult it can be for Afro descent people in the US. So it was an extra, I was so emotional that we were finally doing this, that I don't know, I see it as, I think there's probably a reason why I decided to fix my mess in the year I was moving. It was sort of everything needed to happen to have like before that big transition,
Mm-hmm.
fixing my personal self, fixing my business so that I move and then it looks exactly the way I want things to look like. I move in an environment where I feel safer. I move with a business that I know is more steady and ready to grow. I get closer to my team, stronger, knowing that I've done enough to equip them to do the best job they can. So yeah, 2023 was huge. It was huge. Looking back, I don't know if piling everything the way I did was the best for my mental health. But that's the only way I knew how to do it. I think it was like, let's just do it all.
Yeah.
It's like, what
Yeah.
not?
Yeah. Like, why not?
So yeah. But now looking at wow, how it was a year ago and how it is now, and both on a personal and professional front, things are exactly where they should be and how they should be, which is, I think, pretty phenomenal.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love all of that because I know that it was definitely tough, right? Like, and we wanted to make sure, at least I wanted to make sure that while you were moving, you could move, right? And you wouldn't have to worry about, the team. Are we marketing? Are we doing these projects? Is this getting, are we still making progress on the plans that we created? And so I like to make sure that whenever I'm working with any CEO, I'm like, well, what is your energy like, right? Like, if like, when you were moving, like we couldn't launch a podcast while you were moving, right? We had to wait, right? And we could do so many other things, because if your energy is, elsewhere, or your attention needs to be elsewhere, it is okay for us to adapt our marketing to make
Yeah.
space for that. And that's what I want, CEOs and everybody to understand, that like, it is okay for you to have to prioritize personal while you are building this business, but then you just have to make sure that while you're prioritizing personal, business can still happen. So that's what, important to having the systems, important to having the right leadership, and having someone on your team that can really just make sure that, we honor and prioritize your space and the energy that you have, and honoring how you like to show up, right? Like, it's not forcing people to do things that they don't like, showing up on video or podcasting or writing, right? Like, I'm not someone who enjoys writing. And so that's why I do podcasts, right? That's why I do, some of these other things. But, y'all are fantastic writers. And so it's like, okay, like, how do we make sure that, we can adapt our plans based on your energy level in the moment and your strengths, and making sure that stuff still gets to happen. So I'm glad that we were able to continue moving while you were moving, and that you could have the space to focus on getting your kids settled and getting stuff there and all that kind of stuff. And then when you came back and gave you time to get back and get settled, then it's like, okay, what do we want to do for the rest of the year? Do we want to launch this podcast, or at least create the plans and put together the strategies to be able to launch a podcast and do some other things that we want to do? So I'm glad that during that time you had the space to be able to focus on what you had to focus on personally, and we could continue to do the work that we needed to do, within the business to keep things going.
Yeah, no interruption, which is amazing. I don't think you missed one meeting, whether I was here or not. So that's how I also felt really like looked after. It was really having someone looking after me, knowing that things were still running while I was packing a container.
Yeah.
And yeah, schlepping my kids on the other side of the ocean. Definitely
Yeah.
huge help.
Yeah. Good. So what are as we're starting to close out, tell me a couple things that stick out to you as you found that they were the most impactful in the things that we were doing together through the time that we worked together.
So there's something I'm really not good at, and I think I kind of dislike, but I really liked that you forced us to look into it, is the use of our matrix, how to always reflect back on, okay, we've done that. What does it look like a week later? What's the engagement like? How is our newsletter performing? Where are people logging in from? Having all this data that inform us on what's working or what's not working. So I like the science behind things, because that's when I stop ideating and look and say, okay, this is all complete rubbish. Don't get distracted. This is working really well. Let's double down on that. Or this is not working. Let's just stop and do something else. So I think this was for me like a bit of a aha moment where we you let us be very creative, but also having the science behind help me not just losing myself and losing my team by constantly trying new things.
Mhm.
So I think this was the number one. And I think the structure, like the amount of structure that you helped put in place for us, the SOPs, it's tremendous the amount of content that you shared with us, and everything was documented, everything is neat, everything is at the right place, it being our drive or our ClickUp space. And I didn't know that I could have an area of my business that looked like this. And looking at how you work and how thorough you are definitely inspired me in the other areas, sales, HR, all of the other areas. I was like, it needs to look like this. So all of a sudden I was like writing SOPs at the end of the year,
Yes,
because I
I
know
love
because I was like, you're so organized, and it just makes for such a neat business. So I think the neatness of it for me was very key. Um, and your overall kindness and patience with us. You were dealing with, like, my team, all of us are, fluent in different languages, but most of them are, their English, like, got probably better along the way, but it's far from being their first or even their second language. So you having the patience to listen through briefs from, like, in the broken English, and still putting things together for us, and taking the time to understand, taking the time to make yourself understood, and teaching. I think this was really, really brilliant, always in a very kind way, and in a very respectful way, but also in a way where we were sure to be, like, you kept us in checks. So the accountability for me, as someone who gets easily distracted and all over the place, was really key, which is why when our engagement ended, I was panicking. I thought, oh my God, we're going to go to our old ways. I can see this happening. And guess what? Not really,
it.
Not
I'm glad. I am glad to hear that, honestly. Because like when I think about things that I want to create, like I'm thinking about longevity, right? I'm thinking about let's create something that is a process that's repeatable, or let's create structure that will last forever, right? Like even some of the templates that I gave y'all, like like how to how to create an SOP, right? Like you can adapt that to anything, as
yes.
like, that's what you mentioned. Because it's just so important to have these kinds of things documented. And they just, we look at these very large brands, like we look at Amazon's and Zappos and, Nike and all these big brands. And we have to remember that they started exactly where we are, with no systems, no structure, nothing, right? And so they were able to build something incredible, just as we are doing. And y'all are building something super incredible and super valuable. And because of that, we need to make sure that it has longevity, because y'all have to continue to impact, and change the narrative that we see across the continent. It's so important. That's why I love working with clients who are mission driven and who have something that they have an impact that they're trying to leave on the world. And because of that, I'm like, we need to think long term. Like we may not be, Amazon right now, but in order to get there, we have to have some of these foundational things in place so that things don't just kind of break, as we continue to get bigger.
That's true. And Amazon just got, I think they became profitable probably 5 years ago, not even so.
Yeah.
And they And they're 35-year-old companies.
Yeah, exactly. So we have some time, y'all. So like think so I understand that like as the CEO, I get it. Like, it's so hard to kind of see past today. It's like we got to get all this stuff done. We got to get this client delivery, done. We were just talking about before we started recording about how the year has kind of just started off with like, a blast. I'm just like, I have a bunch of client stuff that's happening right now. And I feel like I haven't had a chance to really kind of sit and breathe and think about what does the long term look like in the business. So I get it. But that's why it's so important to have someone who can kind of pull you out of it and just say, like, okay, like, yes, like you are in the day to day, but let's take a step back and make sure that we put things in place that take us out of the day to day. So that way you can move across across the world and not have to worry about, things slowing down or like leads coming in and just having them sit there because, nobody knows what to do. Right. And so I love that 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 you're still using the stuff. Like that's what I'm thinking about is like long term, like how do we create things that have sustainability. So last thing. So let's talk about like last question I want to ask is if you were thinking about if you go back to like where you were when we kind of, first started working together or before we started working together, and if you had someone who is in a similar situation as you or a CEO that may be in a similar situation that you were before we started working together, what's some advice or some things that you would tell them as they're making that decision on how to get out of this kind of like messy middle that they're in and be able to kind of put these things in place? What are some advice that you have for those kind of CEOs?
I think, first of all, don't wait because the longer you wait, the bigger the mess.
Mm.
And I think, as you were just saying, is sort of thinking about longevity. So looking at not necessarily the end goal, because I know it's always difficult to think about this, but maybe thinking, what do we want the business to look like in 5 years?
Mm-hmm.
And I think then, you have that sort of mountain and you split it or you divide it by what it looks at the end of this year, next year, the following one. And then how do you sort of come back to today and say, okay, that's what I need to do in the next 3 months, but having that sort of plan and clarity before getting into the bigger, sort of the bigger project of amending or putting structure behind the marketing. I think that's probably very helpful. And I think also putting down on paper all of the ideas, all of the questions, all of the things around tools that are not always super clear, because I think we also get a bit bombarded and there's so much content out there that it's easily we just get lost. So I think, putting together a document that says, okay, this is what I want to learn about, or this is where I want to get better at, it being, analytics or particular stats or some, is it like ads or, really having an area where we think, okay, that's something that I would like to explore, which will then inform you on probably how to help the person better. And I think this goes for like this will, I think to me, that is the best collaboration, is sort of going in with a clear mind of what needs to be done or where we want to be. And then also looking at things where we need to really get more of an expertise and learn more. Mm-hmm. And not waiting. Do not wait.
Yeah. So I'm so excited that you came on the show. Thank you again for coming. So tell everybody how they can work with African Media Agency, like, and also kind of tell us a little bit about like when should we, as the CEO, for the CEOs out there that are, because there's a lot of people that listen to this show that want to increase their visibility, and they may not even considered really kind of, placing their media across the continent. So tell us a little bit about how they can work with y'all to do that. If someone's looking to increase their visibility, when should they come to see y'all about helping them to distribute their news?
Right. So there are things that we do that are very Africa centric. So, if your business could serve an area in the continent, but you don't know how to go about the different markets, the culture, the languages, the media landscape, all of this is something that we can help with. So that could be from a media relations strategy to a full-on campaign based on a particular product or ideas or project. That's things that we do on a daily basis for the continent. But if you were to also think about, okay, I am a CEO that needs to sort of profile myself and I need to start doing some media interview, for example. We offer, media training that is super digestible, that's fun, and that's, I think, something everybody should take. Like a good media training is something that you really need because you never know who you are going to come across. It could be raising funds, but also speaking to someone who actually asks you about your business. It's nice to tell your story in the proper way. And again, and also, LinkedIn profiling. I think the key thing, and it took me a bit of a while to actually realize that people want to know about the CEO. Mm-hmm. You might have a great product, but we're in a world now where people want to know who's behind the products or who's behind the idea. You don't just buy a product, you buy a whole company now. You buy the founders, you buy the ethics of the companies, what you stand for, what your political view is. And I think profiling yourself and doing a bit of personal branding is key. It's not something that's always easy to navigate. That's something that we provide our clients, and we sit down with them, we brainstorm, and we're like, okay, what do you stand for? What animates you? How do you want the people to see you? What are the 3 things that you want to come across? And then we work on content. So blog posts, posts, comments, like social media posts, to build a brand that is around your personality and that always serves your product. The more a CEO communicate, the better the company does. If you look at, companies like, if you look at the handles, the social handles of Tesla, you might have, I don't know, maybe a couple of 100,000, and you look at Elon Musk and he has maybe close to 1 billion, or even more than that. Your personality needs to shine, and the more noise and the better positioned you are, the better your product or your company will do. And that's something that we help our clients navigate. And then the rest, the fun stuff, press conferences, events. We're getting ready to host in Côte d'Ivoire the Africa Cup of Nations, which is essentially the African World Cup of the continent. So the city is going to be blocked, but we have a few events happening, which is very nice. A couple of press conferences, sort of tagging along the sports events to make sure that we make some noise. So yeah, this is us. I'm personally always happy to speak to entrepreneurs like me, especially, women entrepreneurs. I think we help each other. So if you feel like reaching out, please do so. LinkedIn, emails. Yeah, I'd love to speak to you.
Yeah.
And thank you so much, Stacey, for having me. And thank you for all your help. I am so grateful to you. You have no idea.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate you. And seriously, y'all were a joy to work with. I like, if you can give me a hungry team, I can work with that, right? Like, I can't pull people kicking and screaming, but your team was just like, regardless of how fast I was talking, and they were just like, whoa, like, slow down. Like, we all made it work together. So I appreciate y'all as well. So y'all definitely make sure that if you want to get in touch with Ellie, head over to the show notes because we will have links to her site. Oh, definitely make sure you check out our site because we did do a site refresh also while we were working together. So head over to africanmediaagency.com. But otherwise, you can go to the show notes and get her LinkedIn, get links to her website and all that kind of good stuff. And if you are looking to, you listen to this episode and you're really kind of thinking about the longevity of your company and the long-term vision of your company, and you want to have someone to really kind of come in and help you with the marketing, help you and your team to be more successful, to create the structure, to create all of the different systems that you need in order to be able to scale your business, and just having someone who can really help you to point you in the right direction and give your team the training and the leadership that they need to be more successful. Definitely make sure that you reach out to me. You can book a call with us on our site. You can reach out to me. I'm all over these social streets. Y'all know that. So definitely make sure you reach out because I want to make sure that I can help you to create the longevity, the systems and processes and support and focus on the right strategies that you need to be able to grow your mission and to be able to have your business around for the long term. So that's this episode of Roadmap to 1 Million, y'all. Make sure that y'all are following the show if you are not following already. Make sure you share this episode. And if you got something out of this episode, or if you could relate to something that Ellie said in this episode, leave us a review, because I love reading the reviews. We're always going to make sure that we stay on top of those. So, and they definitely help us to grow the show. So that's what I got for y'all. I'll see y'all next week. OMG, that episode was packed with gems. Are you ready for more? Head over to stacyzeal.co/podcast to get the show notes and to sign up to get our top 5 podcast episodes to help you streamline your marketing so you can make this your $1 million year. Head over to stacyzeal.co/podcast.